Imagine being like a second grader, right? You're standing in front of your school choir, and your own classmates tell you that you sound like a goat.
Oh, wow. Brutal.
It's incredibly brutal, but now imagine taking that exact distinct goat voice, refusing to smooth it out, and using it to gross $421 million on a single tour.
I mean, it sounds like a totally fabricated Hollywood script,
Right?
but it is literally the trajectory of the artists we are analyzing today because, the instinct for most people facing that kind of early public ridicule is to just conform.
Yeah, to just blend in.
Exactly. But today's subject did the exact opposite.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. For you listening, our mission today is unpacking the biography of a global icon, Shakira Isabel Mubarak Ripoll.
And we've got a really, really fascinating stack of sources for this one.
We really do. We have standard biographical data. We have these freshly minted 2026 industry touring statistics. And somehow we even have a science English exam.
Which is my favorite part.
Right. It's so random, but it accidentally reveals some massive hidden details about her intellect. So we are definitely getting into that.
Yeah, because the diversity of these sources is necessary here. The standard pop star narrative it doesn't apply to her at all.
No, it really doesn't.
We are looking at an absolute masterclass in leveraging perceived flaws, maintaining total creative control, and utilizing massive commercial fame for some pretty profound philanthropic work.
So I want to start with that childhood.
Yeah.
Because the sources paint this picture of a kid who is like processing some very heavy reality super early on.
She really was.
So she's born February 2nd, 1977 in Barranquilla, Colombia. And I'm looking at her lineage here, and it's just this incredibly dense mix.
Yeah, it's very multicultural.
Right, you've got Lebanese, Catalan, and Italian ancestry all colliding in one household.
And that collision is really the foundation of her entire sonic architecture later on. Her father, William, is of Lebanese descent, and that Middle Eastern heritage was just a constant presence.
But he also shaped her worldview, way outside of just music, right?
Oh, absolutely. He was a jeweler, and he actually went completely bankrupt when Shakira was just 8 years old.
I read that in the notes, and it just made me pause. Like, how does an 8-year-old even process bankruptcy?
It's a lot.
One day you have cars and a color TV, and the next day it's just all gone.
And, most parents would try to shield a child from that kind of financial whiplash. But her father made a very deliberate, almost radical parenting choice.
What did he do?
He took her to a local park in Barranquilla, specifically to show her the orphans who lived there.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted her to see children who were sniffing glue just to stave off hunger. He was basically trying to contextualize their own family's loss by showing her absolute destitution.
That is such a heavy burden for a second grader.
It really is.
But the sources indicate it worked, like, almost too well. It prompted this 8-year-old kid to make a concrete vow. She literally said that when she became a famous artist, she was going to come back and help kids in that exact situation.
Which is amazing.
It's wild that she was already banking on fame as a tool at age 8.
Well, her physical connection to music had already been established before that. Like when she was 4, her dad took her to a Middle Eastern restaurant.
Okay.
And she heard a doumbek, which is this traditional Arabic hand drum, and the rhythm just bypassed her brain entirely.
She just reacted to it.
Yeah, she literally climbed onto a table and just instinctively started belly dancing. It wasn't choreographed at all. It was just a visceral, physical reaction to the percussion.
But despite that obvious innate talent, she gets to school and immediately hits a wall.
Oh, totally.
The biodata mentions she was literally kicked out of class for being too hyperactive. And then comes that choir audition.
Right, the infamous audition.
The teacher rejects her, claiming her vibrato is way too strong. And that's exactly when her classmates label her with that goat voice.
Which brings us to, really, the first major inflection point of her career.
Because normally, you'd just try to fix it, right?
Yeah. Exactly. The mechanics of the music industry usually dictate that if a kid wants to be a star, you put them in vocal lessons. You iron out the quirks. You train them to sound like, whatever is currently charting on the radio.
Right. You just manufacture them to fit the mold. Like Michael Jordan getting cut from his high school basketball team. You either give up or you change.
Yep.
But she doesn't do that. Somehow, she goes from being the rejected goat kid to signing a record deal with Sony Music Columbia at age 13.
Yeah.
I really need to understand the mechanism there. How does a kid with a highly polarizing voice convince executives to sign her?
by entirely bypassing the traditional gatekeepers. I mean, since the school wouldn't let her sing, she started competing in local talent shows.
And she won them.
She won them because she leaned heavily into the exact things she was criticized for. She exaggerated that heavy, rapid vibrato.
Oh, wow.
She incorporated the Arabic belly dancing she learned from her Lebanese roots. She basically became a spectacle that just couldn't be ignored.
That's brilliant.
And this local theater producer saw this incredibly unique performance, recognized the raw magnetism, and essentially just badgered Sony executives until they agreed to watch her audition in a hotel lobby.
So she just forced the issue by being undeniable.
Exactly.
But, getting the contract is really only step one. I'm looking at the sales data for her first two albums under Sony Magia in 1991 and Peligro in 1993.
Yeah, those are rough.
They didn't just underperform, they flat out bombed.
Yeah.
Magia sold, something like 1,200 copies in Colombia?
Yeah. And to put that in perspective, 1,200 copies is essentially just your extended family, your friends, and maybe the immediate neighborhood buying cassette tapes.
Right, just a few pity purchases.
It was a massive commercial failure.
So what went wrong? I mean, she clearly had the talent to get in the door.
Well, the label tried to do exactly what we discussed earlier. They tried to manufacture her.
Oh, they tried to smooth her out.
Yes. They put her in these generic pop arrangements that didn't utilize her specific vocal tone or her cultural influences at all. They tried to make her just a standard early 90s teen pop idol, and the audience could just feel the lack of authenticity.
I would assume after two massive flops like that, a label just drops you entirely.
They almost did. But instead of begging for another chance under their rules, she actually demanded total creative control for her third album.
At what age?
18. The album was Pies Descalzos, which translates to bare feet. She was 18 years old, and she essentially told the Sony executives that she was going to write the music, dictate the production, and blend the genres her own way.
That takes an insane amount of leverage that she technically did not have at all.
Zero leverage, but she did it anyway.
But it worked. She creates this incredible fusion of Latin rock, pop, and Middle Eastern instrumentation. But I want to pause on the Latin rock element for a second.
Sure.
When the sources refer to a rock or a fan base in 90s Colombia, what does that actually mean? Was she doing grunge?
It was definitely adjacent to the alternative rock movement that was happening globally at the time, but infused with Latin percussion and sensibilities.
Okay, that makes sense.
She dyed her hair dark, she played the guitar, and she wrote these highly poetic, sometimes angsty Spanish lyrics.
Oh, okay.
She was really seen as an authentic singer-songwriter, counterculture figure, totally distinct from the polished, synthesized pop stars of that era.
Right.
And Pies Descalzos goes on to sell over 5 million copies, mostly because it just really resonated with a generation looking for actual substance.
So she conquers the Spanish-speaking market by just being her authentic self. But then, fast forward to 2001, she decides she wants to cross over into the massive English language market with the album Laundry Service.
Which was a huge moment.
But my immediate thought here is, isn't that incredibly risky? She built this loyal rocker fan base. If you suddenly start singing in English to appeal to the American pop machine, don't you risk totally alienating the people who built you?
It is a massive risk. I mean, we've seen countless international artists attempt the English crossover, and they usually fail.
Right, because they dilute their sound to appeal to Western radio.
Exactly. They hire American producers who just strip away all the cultural nuances.
But the sources highlight a really specific detail about how Shakira handled this. She didn't just hire a team of English songwriters to hand her generic lyrics.
No, she didn't.
She actually worked directly with Gloria Estefan to learn English specifically so she could translate her own complex, poetic writing style.
And that distinction is everything. Translating a song isn't just about, swapping vocabulary.
Right, it's the feeling.
Exactly. It's about maintaining the cadence, the emotional resonance, and all the specific cultural idioms. Learning English to write her own lyrics wasn't just acquiring a new language.
What was it then?
Think of it like taking a highly specialized operating system built entirely for Latin America and painstakingly rewriting the core code so it can run on any computer in the world, but without losing a single piece of its original functionality.
That is a brilliant way to look at it.
Yeah.
She didn't become a different artist at all. She just expanded her bandwidth.
Precisely. She injected Western rock and pop with Middle Eastern belly dancing aesthetics, Andean flutes, and Latin percussion.
Yeah.
She didn't adapt to the mainstream American market. She essentially forced the mainstream American market to adapt to her.
And it worked on a massive scale. Laundry service sold 13 million copies globally.
Unbelievable numbers.
It popularized Latin rhythms worldwide and genuinely laid the architectural groundwork for the massive global Hispanophone music explosion we are seeing today.
It really did.
The control she demanded in the recording studio at 18 clearly paid off.
Oh, but I want to pivot here. Because does that intense need to steer her own ship bleed into her life offstage?
Oh, absolutely.
This is where that highly unusual source comes in, the science English exam.
Yes. The exam that was used as reading comprehension material in our sources. It explicitly highlights her intellect, noting she has a reported IQ of 140.
Which is literally categorized as genius level.
But how does a 140 IQ actually manifest in a pop career? Like, it's a great piece of trivia, but what does it look like in practical terms?
Well, it manifests in structural dominance. It looks like an artist who personally negotiates the intricacies of global touring contracts, someone who understands the mechanics of international publishing rights.
Oh, she's actually in the weeds on the business side.
Very much so. And she strategically routes her tours through specific emerging markets way before the rest of the industry catches on.
Wow.
It also manifests in a just relentless curiosity. Like during the social distancing period of the pandemic, she completed a course in ancient philosophy at the University of Pennsylvania.
Wait. While the rest of the world was like baking sourdough bread and binge-watching television, she was logging into Ivy League portals to study Plato.
Exactly. And I think it speaks to a mind that just requires constant stimulation beyond the repetitive nature of writing pop hooks.
That makes total sense.
But really, the most significant application of that intellect is her philanthropy. True to that vow she made at 8 years old in that park, she founded the Barefoot Foundation Pies Descalzos when she was just 18 years old.
I have to push back on the mechanics of that, though. I understand. Like an 18-year-old writing a check to a charity, but how does an 18-year-old pop star actually build a school?
By treating the foundation like a complex infrastructure project, not just some PR vanity charity.
Okay.
She partnered with local governments, international NGOs, and she leveraged her massive fame to secure capital. But the core philosophy driving it actually comes from her upbringing in a Colombian Catholic school.
How so?
The nuns there required students to visit impoverished neighborhoods to teach basic reading and writing to unschooled children.
Ah. So she was doing hands-on education work way before she was even famous.
Yes. She learned very early on that temporary financial aid doesn't break the cycle of poverty. Only systemic education does.
Right. Give a man a fish versus teach a man to fish.
Exactly. So her foundation doesn't just drop off supplies. They build massive, state-of-the-art educational facilities in displaced and vulnerable communities in Colombia. They provide comprehensive nutrition programs, psychological support.
Wow.
To date, they have helped over 28,000 children.
That is staggering.
She operates under the explicit belief that there is more to life than selling records, and that her fame and wealth are merely tools to fund this ultimate mission.
It's incredible.
It's why she actively applies this by serving on advisory panels, like the President's Advisory Commission on Educational Excellence for Hispanics.
It really is a completely dual life.
Yeah.
Like, by day, she's headlining the Super Bowl, and by night, she's negotiating educational policy and studying philosophy.
Yeah.
But, all of that intellect, all of that infrastructure she built, it was put to a brutal test in the 2020s.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the most recent and arguably most lucrative phase of her entire career.
Yeah, the early 2020s presented this convergence of personal and public crises that would have permanently sidelined almost any other public figure.
The sources detail just an absolute avalanche of stress. In 2022, after a 12-year relationship with soccer player Gerard Piqué, with whom she has 2 sons, Milan and Sasha, she discovers his betrayal.
Yeah.
And she discovers it as the media is aggressively broadcasting it to the entire world. And at the exact same time, her father, the man who shaped her entire worldview, is 91 years old, suffers a terrible fall and is hospitalized.
It is a period of just profound emotional vulnerability for her, and to compound the personal trauma, she was simultaneously fighting a highly publicized tax controversy with the Spanish government.
I remember seeing the headlines for that, but we want to be clear and just look at the sources here. What was the actual mechanism of the dispute? Because the media just ran with the phrase tax fraud, which sounds fairly dramatic.
Right, and we're just reporting what the sources outline here, not taking a side on the legality. The mechanism comes down to the strict definition of residency under Spanish tax law. Spain considers you a tax resident if you spend more than 183 days a year in the country. Shakira argued that during the years in question, her primary residence was the Bahamas, and she was touring globally, therefore not meeting that 183-day threshold in Spain.
Got it.
The Spanish state heavily pursued the case, analyzing her credit card usage and travel logs to prove she spent the majority of her time in Barcelona with Piqué. It was an incredibly invasive and stressful legal battle hanging over her while her personal life was just collapsing.
So you have a very public betrayal, severe family illness, and the government scrutinizing your every movement. Society has very specific expectations for how female pop stars are supposed to behave in a scandal.
Oh, definitely.
The playbook usually says, retreat, release a highly sanitized PR statement, lay low for 2 years, and eventually come back with a very quiet, apologetic album.
The industry expectation is absolutely to maintain a quiet grace, to not appear messy, vindictive, or angry. Anger is rarely rewarded in female artists.
But just like with the school choir, she completely ignored the expected behavior.
She sure did.
Instead of retreating, she took all of that raw, unfiltered heartbreak and anger, and she weaponized it into her 2024 album, Las Mujeres Ya No Lloran, which translates to Women No Longer Cry.
Yes.
She literally named names in the lyrics. She targeted her ex. She targeted the tax authorities. She put it all in a global dance beat.
And by refusing to be a silent victim, she achieved this ultimate reclamation of her narrative. She didn't let the tabloids monetize her pain. She monetized it herself.
And the execution was flawless.
Yeah.
In February 2025, that exact album won the Grammy for Best Latin Pop Album.
A huge vindication.
And the sources note a very specific moment during her acceptance speech on the global broadcast. She didn't just thank her producers. She explicitly and impartially dedicated the award to her immigrant brothers and sisters and to working mothers.
Which ties beautifully back into her foundation's ethos of supporting marginalized communities.
Right.
It highlights that even at the peak of her commercial vengeance, her core humanitarian values remain the focal point of her public platform.
But the financial metrics from this era are what truly blow my mind. Let's look at these brand new January 2026 touring statistics.
Okay, let's look at them.
She takes this album of Heartbreak on the Road, and she shatters the all-time touring revenue record for a Latin artist.
Huh.
She grossed $421.6 million.
Wow.
She sold 3.3 million tickets across 86 shows.
Those numbers represent a paradigm shift in how we view the longevity of pop careers.
Explain that to me. Because grossing over $420 million 30 years into your career seems mathematically impossible in an industry that is so obsessed with youth.
Historically, pop music is a depreciating asset.
Right.
Artists peak in their 20s, and by their 40s, they are usually relegated to legacy acts playing nostalgic hits at casinos. What Shakira proved is that if you maintain absolute creative control and you are willing to be radically vulnerable and authentic about your current life stage, even if that stage is messy and painful, the audience will scale with you.
That's a great point.
She didn't try to pretend she was still a carefree 20-year-old. She presented herself as a betrayed, furious, empowered mother in her late 40s, and millions of people bought tickets because that authenticity is universally resonant.
And she earned a 2026 nomination for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame off the back of that exact authenticity.
Which is just incredible.
It really brings us full circle. We started this deep dive looking at a hyperactive little kid in Barranquilla. Her vibrato was too heavy, her belly dancing was unconventional, she sounded like a goat.
Yeah.
And instead of letting the system fix her, she forced the system to expand its parameters to include her.
She is the absolute architect of her own blueprint, from demanding control of Pies Descalzos at 18, to translating her soul into English on her own terms, to building schools across Colombia, to turning public humiliation into a $500 million global triumph. She never compromised her core identity.
It is the ultimate testament to leveraging everything that makes you different. And as we wrap up our dive into these sources today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to chew on as you go about your day. Shakira's greatest, most lucrative global triumphs never occurred when she tried to fit into the sanitized pop mold.
Oh, they didn't.
The breakthroughs always happened when she explicitly embraced the exact thing she was initially criticized for: the intense vibrato, the mixed cultural heritage, the unfiltered anger. So ask yourself, what flaw or unique quirk of yours are you currently spending all your energy trying to hide? Because if you look at the mechanics of this career, that exact flaw might actually be your greatest superpower, just waiting to be unleashed.